Hi guys, so today is the day that I start my Medtronic MiniMed 640G trial, and I'm going to be doing that for 64 days and I'm going to be vlogging once a week just to let you guys know how it's going, if there are any pros and cons, if it's preventing my hypos, if it's helping me with my highs, and just anything exciting that happens within the next 64 days really. I get my pump in 2 hours, so I'm quite excited. I'm a little bit nervous as well, just because I've been using my insulin pump for the last 2 years. So switching to a different brand, a different pump, and one that has a CGM as well is going to be quite a big deal for me. But as I say, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to seeing if it prevents my post-running hypos, to see how the insulin suspend function works. And it's a little bit nerve-wracking to let a machine manage your hypos for you, or to prevent your hypos I should say, especially when I've been doing it myself for the last 12 years. To trust a machine to do that, especially when a hypo can be quite dangerous if not managed properly. It is nerve-wracking, but I'm excited to see the technology and to see if it actually works, and I'll let you guys know how it goes. Okay, so I'm back from the clinic and I have my new pump, and I just wanted to show you because I'm excited. So this is it, the Medtronic MiniMed 640G, and I just wanted to compare it to my AccuCheck. So there is a little bit of difference size-wise. The 640G is tiny bit bigger. It does weigh a little bit more as well, but it's nothing noticeable. I've been wearing it on the waistband of my jeans, just clipped on, and I didn't notice. It didn't really feel any different to the AccuCheck and how that feels anyway. So yeah, I mean, after 3 hours of training, I'm pretty impressed with the pump. Even just the standalone pump I think is really impressive, and I'm quite excited about the insight that it's going to give me into my diabetes, especially with the CGM. CGM that I'm wearing is the Medtronic Enlight sensor. So CGM stands for continuous glucose monitoring, and I don't want to go into too much detail about that, so I'll probably put a link in the description underneath this video so people can look at that themselves. But I just wanted to talk about the SmartGuard technology that the pump has. So SmartGuard is designed to prevent you from having hypos. And what we did whilst I was setting this up with the Medtronic rep, we set myself a low threshold of where I don't want my blood sugars to hit. So for me, I don't want my blood sugars to go below 4. So we've set the low threshold, and what will happen is the CGM will pick up if my glucose is dropping rapidly. If it thinks that I'm heading towards a hypo and that I might hit that 4 threshold, I hope I'm getting this right, it will send a message to my pump. It will tell the pump, suspend Laura's insulin because she's heading towards her low threshold. Suspend it for a minimum of 30 minutes, and I think the maximum is 2 hours if the person is able to push the buttons on here to confirm that they know it's being suspended. If the person isn't able to push any buttons to confirm that the insulin is being suspended, I think it will suspend for a maximum of 4 hours. Don't take my word for that though, check with Medtronic. So yeah, that's the SmartGuard technology. So it should, in theory, stop me from hitting the 4 threshold. It should stop at 5.1, so 1.1 millimoles above your low threshold. And there are different options to know if this is happening. So you can either have the beep, which I don't want. I hate beeps on any technology I use. I hate that beeping noise. So I've turned off the beep already. You can have it on vibrate, which I've got. So just because I want to know that it's going to suspend my insulin, I want it to tell me. I don't want it beeping, but a vibrate is fine. And then there's the option of turning off the alerts altogether. So one of the other patients that I've seen who's been vlogging about this has turned off his alerts, which I think is quite brave, and I'll probably do it at some point. But basically, you won't know that the pump is switching off your insulin, and you won't know that it's switching it back on. It will just do it all for you. So once the insulin is suspended and the pump has turned it off, the CGM will then, however long it takes, it will tell your pump when your blood sugars are starting to rise again. And your pump will wait until they've risen to a safe level, and then it will start delivering insulin again, which is just incredible. I can't believe it. I mean, I heard about it when we went to the Medtronic meeting, and I was kind of like, yeah, that's not going to work. It's just kind of like a really big idea that they've had that sounds amazing. But I'm excited to see if it actually happens. It's been vibrating at me because I'm high at the moment. High glucose, that is. I'm not high. And as well as the low threshold, you can also have a high threshold. So you'll set your high threshold at what you don't want your blood sugars to hit. But the only difference is when you start heading towards your high threshold and the CGM is telling your pump that you're heading towards the high threshold, it won't deliver you insulin. That would be a closed loop system, which this isn't. So it will alert to tell you that you're heading towards your high threshold, and then you will have to do something about that yourself. So you'll either take a correction dose of insulin, or you'll have a temporary basal rate on your pump, or whatever you decide to do. Yeah, so that has been working at the moment. On the way home, it was vibrating away to tell me that my blood sugars were too high and that I needed to do something about that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the low glucose suspend works. Not that I want my blood sugars to drop, but I want you guys to know that it is working, so at some point, hopefully, they will start to dip a little bit and start heading towards my low threshold. And then I can see if it actually does work, and then I can tell you guys about it. So that's all I'm going to say for now. I just wanted to explain the SmartGuard technology. I now want to go away and have a play with this in my own time with a cup of tea, and just go over everything and make sure that I'm confident using it. So today is my second full day with the 640G, and I just wanted to give you some feedback about what it's been doing when it comes to my lows and my hypos. So I've had 2 hypos and 1 near miss so far. The first hypo was on the same day that I got the pump, and it alerted me, it vibrated to say that it was going to suspend my insulin, which was great. A minute later, I then had another vibration and another message on the screen saying, you've reached your hypo stage, you need to treat yourself with whatever you're going to treat yourself with, so jelly babies in my case. So I did that. And then obviously I wanted to find out the reason why I'd had the hypo and why it hadn't been able to prevent it by suspending my insulin. So looking at the screen, it told me that I still had insulin on board from the meal that I'd had previously. So to me that said that I probably need to look at the way that I'm taking my insulin, maybe look into using different options when it comes to bolusing. So this pump gives you the option of having a square wave or a dual wave. I could also look at the duration that the insulin is being delivered, so maybe spreading it out over an hour or 2, depending on what I've been eating. So yeah, it was kind of a learning curve for me to know that it had happened and to be able to see potentially a reason why. The second hypo was the next day, roughly around the same time as well. So looking at the screen, again, had insulin on board, again, needed to look at different ways of delivering and looking at my insulin being spread out whilst it's being delivered. I know that I carb counted exactly for that meal because it was from a packet. So it wasn't my carb counting, it was the fact that I'd gone wrong somewhere with my bolusing. But another reason it could be is that I need to do basal testing, and I haven't done any for absolutely ages. So maybe that's something that I need to look into to eliminate that, to see if my basal needs adjusting. But it's really great. It's great to have that insight, and that's why I love using CGM, because it just gives me the insight that finger pricking, capillary blood testing, it doesn't give me. So the final hypo, oh, it wasn't a hypo, the final near miss was last night when it vibrated whilst I was asleep. I looked at the screen, it said that it was suspending my insulin, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to let it do it, see what happens, and go from there. So it was like 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Being quite tired, I just went straight back to sleep, and an hour and a half later had another vibration, woke up, looked at the screen, my blood sugars had risen nicely to about 7.58, and there was a message on the screen telling me that my insulin would be started again, and to confirm that it would be starting my insulin. So that was great. I basically woke up for a split second, looked at the screen, saw that it was suspending, went back to sleep, woke up again, saw that it was restarting my insulin, and everything was fine. As I said earlier, there is the option to turn off the vibrations. So if you don't want to be woken up at all during the night, you just turn the alerts and the vibrations off. The only slight issue that I had after that suspending to prevent that low was that I woke up in the morning, and when I calibrated the pump, my blood sugars were actually 11.3. So that could be down to the fact that my insulin had been suspended for an hour and a half. I didn't have anything going into me. So that could have caused that high. It's not a huge high. It's something that I can easily correct with the insulin pump. But I suppose if people are looking at getting this pump and this CGM and using the SmartGuard technology, they need to weigh up the pros and cons. If having insulin suspended for a certain amount of time does cause a small rebound high, you just need to think about that. You need to think about what's most important to you, the fact that you're going to get a good night's sleep and that the pump will suspend your insulin and prevent a hypo, versus having this high that you can correct. Or if you're one of those people that really hates highs, which I am sometimes, I hate seeing high numbers, then maybe it's not the option for you. But as I said, it was only a small high, 11.3. I had a correction dose, it came down within a few hours, and I just carried on with my day. And the fact that, you know, this machine prevented my hypo during the night was just, it was great. It was such a relief to know that it had worked, because I had been worrying that it was, because of the previous 2 hypos, I had been worrying that it wasn't going to work. I was thinking, oh, I don't want this to not work for me. I really want this to be a great product. So seeing that it suspended my insulin for an hour and a half, it was kind of like, yeah, a little celebration for Medtronic. And for me as well, because I had a pretty good night's sleep with only 2 little vibrations that woke me up. So yeah, I'm still confident in the product. I still feel confident with my diabetes and my management. Hoping that from here on I will start giving myself insulin properly when it comes to bolus delivery, and I can also do some basal testing as well. So it's really giving me like an amazing insight into my diabetes, and I'm feeling quite happy at the moment.